Hello, John Henry Alex here, and I am not an ostrich. In this video I address an argument that I've seen pop up once in a while on YouTube, mostly in comment threads. The argument is, we do not identify ourselves for what we are not. I say absolutely we do, and it's a matter of appropriate context, just like when we identify ourselves for what we are, but only when the context is appropriate to do so. I'll use 4 scenarios, one to illustrate the point of the argument, which is, it's absurd for us to identify ourselves for what we are not, a second to illustrate how identifying ourselves for what we are can be just as absurd, and finally a third and fourth scenario to illustrate how context can either break or make identifying ourselves for what we are not. For the sake of the illustration, I'll use the name John, but in your own individual case, you can use your own name. Scenario 1. Imagine you are introducing yourself to a potential new employer in a job interview. Upon meeting your interviewer, you extend your hand for a handshake and say, "Hello, my name is John, and I am not a cat." From this illustration, we can see how strange or odd it is to identify oneself for something one is not. It's awkward and out of place, and may cause people around you, especially the one you're introducing yourself to think you might be a good candidate for psychological observation. So it would appear that it's a fair argument to say we do not identify ourselves for what we are not. Scenario 2. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. Let's look at a scenario where an introduction is being made between new neighbors, and this time we'll be identifying ourselves for what we are. Hello, my name is John, and I am human. Accurate as it is, this too seems a little odd or strange. It's not unreasonable in most cases to assume your new neighbor is able to discern that you are indeed human, and as such, it's not necessary to identify as one in an introduction. So it seems there are circumstances where identifying yourself for what you are is just as awkward as identifying yourself for what you are not. Why is this? Because in these scenarios, there is no context for identifying ourselves as not a cat or as a human. In the absence of a pertinent context, we can sound very much like we are in need of a pharmaceutical intervention. Scenario 3. In this next scenario, we will revisit identifying ourselves for what we are not, but our focus will be on the lack of context. Let's say you're at a dinner party and are discussing your favorite pastime. For the sake of illustration, we'll say mountain climbing. You talk about climbs you've done, mountains you've conquered, and the gear you've used. And while talking about Mount Everest, you say, "Everest was the most grueling climb of my life. I am not a rapist." Clearly we can see just how mentally unstable you'd appear to others if you announced for no apparent reason that you were not a rapist when it is not pertinent to make such a claim. There was no context for such a remark, and regardless of how true the statement is, it still makes you look batshit crazy. There are situations where we do identify ourselves for what we are not, and that doing so is perfectly legitimate as long as it is within the right context. Scenario 4. In this next scenario, we will look again at identifying ourselves for what we are not, but this time it will be framed within a context where it makes sense to do so. Consider being a man who has been brought into a police station for questioning about a rape that recently occurred. Whether you are guilty or not of the crime, it would not be odd or strange to declare, "I am not a rapist." In this situation, there is a context that makes it pertinent, so it does not seem odd or strange to make such a claim. It is perfectly okay to identify yourself for what you are not, as long as it's within the right context for the subject at hand. Here on YouTube, there are a number of communities that discuss or address many topics, and among them a community of a sort that discusses or addresses topics concerning theism and or atheism. It is in this community that those who do not believe in a god or gods can identify themselves for what they are not. It is okay to say, I am not a theist, or to put it another way, I am an atheist, simply by virtue of addressing theist-atheist subjects in a theist-atheist community. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to rate and comment, and maybe consider subscribing. I am not a wombat.